The forbidden market, the stars above the Velkara system, glowed cold and silent. Orbiting its twin suns was a luxury station not shown on any official star maps. Its name was whispered among smugglers, royal aides, and traders of secret desires. It was called Haven of Silk, but most people simply knew it as the Forbidden Market. Jace, a young human male from Earth, stood wide-eyed inside the docking bay. He wore a simple translator earpiece, a clean jumpsuit, and nervous energy when he signed up for the Galactic Cultural Exchange Program. He thought he'd be helping aliens understand human art. He thought he'd teach music or share stories. He never imagined being escorted by silent droids into a private suite with soft glowing lights and two alien women inspecting him like he was jewelry. One of them was tall, four-armed, and had silver eyes that blinked sideways. She tilted her head and said, "He looks fresh." The other smiled, her green skin shimmering under the ceiling lights. "Fresh minds are the most honest," she whispered. "I'll pay double." Jace didn't understand what was going on. He tried to speak, but the taller one pressed a button on a remote. A fine mist sprayed over him. And suddenly the room felt warmer, heavier, slower. A calm feeling washed over his body like honey flowing through his blood. "Please," he said. "I think there's been a mistake," but his voice was quiet, unsure. And the translator made him sound polite even when he panicked. The green-skinned woman walked closer and gently touched his chest. "No mistake, human," she said. "You are here to bring warmth." That night, he was left in the suite alone with soft music and velvet walls. He didn't sleep. Instead, he searched the datapad left on the bedside table. There was no escape menu, no logout button, no call home feature. But there was a contract one. He had digitally signed on Earth, filled with legal language and beautiful lies. He tapped the service details section and saw the truth. Humans were being hired not for education or diplomacy. They were being sold as emotional companions, partners, and comfort givers to wealthy alien women. And he wasn't the only one. In the morning, he was taken to the orientation hall, a large chamber with a domed glass ceiling and glowing plants from 7 galaxies. There were about 20 other humans there, all males, most looking confused or tired. Some had already adapted, wearing alien silk robes and chatting with their handlers like they were tour guides. One man, a tall, Tom Nigerian named Tolu, sat beside Jace and whispered, "Don't fight the system, friend." Jace leaned closer. "What is this place?" Tolu smiled sadly. "Luxury, wrapped around a cage." He pointed across the hall where an alien woman sat surrounded by guards. "See her? That's Countess Freyla of Virith. She paid a planet's worth of gold for a single night with a human who made her laugh." Jace's stomach turned. "I didn't sign up for this," he said. Tolu nodded. "None of us did." That night, Jace was summoned again, but this time to a different room. A soft voice came from the shadows. "Do you know why they want you?" Jace stepped into the light and saw her. She was tall, with golden eyes and smooth indigo skin, wearing robes stitched with real starlight. "I don't," Jace replied. The woman smiled gently. "Because your kind still knows how to feel." She walked around him slowly. "We have knowledge, power, beauty, and silence. But you," she said, stopping in front of him, "you carry the music of touch, the honesty of eyes, the fire of laughter." Jace didn't know what to say. The alien woman looked out the wide glass window at the galaxies spinning beyond them. "Every noble woman here feels empty," she said, "and humans. You fill the spaces we didn't know were hollow." He backed away. "I just want to go home." The woman didn't move. "I could buy your contract," she said quietly. "And you would never want for anything again?" Jace stared at her. Confused. "Why?" he asked. She turned to him with something close to sadness in her voice. Because I'm tired of touching people who don't feel anything outside across the luxury station. Other aliens waited for their human experiences. To them, humans were not just rare, they were addictive, and Jace was starting to understand just how deep the market went. Not for bodies, but for hearts, and hearts were the most valuable currency in the galaxy. Asterisk, the pleasure contracts the stars outside Jace's window sparkled like shattered glass. But he wasn't looking at them. He was staring at the small chip. In his palm, glowing faintly under his skin, it had been injected during orientation. And he only just found out what it really did. It tracked his location, monitored his pulse. And worse, it could sedate him remotely if he tried to run. He wasn't a guest. He wasn't even a worker. He was a product, and his service had already been sold. That morning, he was led into a wide room called the Harmony Lounge, where alien women lounged on floating cushions. Some had wings, some had shimmering fur. Others had more arms than he could count. All were rich, powerful, and each held a crystal pad showing a rotating lineup of human males. Like a catalog, Jace stood stiffly with 10 others, each in a tailored outfit meant to flatter their features. A small drone buzzed overhead, projecting their profiles into the air. Jace Harrow, it read, species, human. Age, 24 Earth years. Native language, English, emotional range, high. The last line made several of the women smile. A voice echoed across the lounge, feminine, regal, and cold. Emotional range is what we pay for. Jace's eyes scanned the room until they landed on a woman draped in silver cloth and surrounded by guards. Her eyes met his calm, powerful, and entirely unreadable. She raised a single hand and said, "That one." Before he could protest, 2 service drones floated forward, tagged his profile, and sent his name to her ownership log, later, in her private quarters. The silver-robed alien introduced herself. "I am Mirantal of House Dre," she said. "Pouring a drink made from glowing fruits, you will stay with me for 8 nights. She added, "You will speak, sing, and allow yourself to be near me." Jace kept his tone level. "Do I have a choice?" Mirantal raised a brow. "You signed the pleasure contract." "I thought it was an exchange program," Jace muttered. "It is," she replied calmly. "You give what your kind has too much of emotion, and we return what you lack power. Shelter, adoration, that first night." She didn't touch him. She didn't even sit close. She asked him questions. Not about politics or science, but about love, childhood, and loss. She wanted to know what it meant to hold someone's hand because you missed them, what it felt like. To cry beside a mother's grave, what it meant to kiss someone you couldn't keep. Jace answered honestly, unsure why. Mirantal listened like she was hearing music for the first time. At the end of their session, she whispered, "Your pain is warm." The next night, it was another noble woman. She requested an experience, not physical, but emotional. She wanted to feel heartbreak. Jace was confused. But the handler explained. "She lost her bonded partner 2 centuries ago," he said. "But she can no longer cry. Your job is to show her how." He sat across from the noble Atal, soft-spoken creature with petals on her skin, shared the story of how his dog died when he was 10. The way he cried for hours and didn't eat for 2 days. The way he still remembered the sound of the collar jingling even after all those years. The noble listened, eyes wide and trembling. One tear slid down her cheek. The handler nodded with satisfaction. "Payment complete," he said. She felt that's when Jace understood. It wasn't about the body. It was about the one thing aliens had evolved away from: emotional vulnerability. Their minds were sharper, their lifespans longer. But their hearts had dulled with time. And humans, with all their pain and love and awkwardness, were now rare emotional artifacts. Jace was a walking museum piece, a man-turned mirror, showing others what they had forgotten. Some humans adapted to this role. One of them, Andre from Paris, became a legend. He charged triple and offered grief immersion. Another man, Carlos, offered reconnection therapy where he just gave long hugs and told bedtime stories. Jace met them all in the break lounge, sipping nutrient drinks and sharing what each noble client wanted this week. Mine wants to argue, said one. She misses passion. Mine wants to pretend we're married and bored, said another. She craves routine. They laughed, but their eyes were tired. Jace looked around the lounge and whispered, "This isn't a market, it's a temple." Carlos replied, "No, it's a galaxy-wide confession booth." And every alien woman lining up outside was desperate for one thing: to remember what it felt like to be human, even if they never were. The lonely billionaire the ship that arrived didn't make noise. It didn't need to. It was shaped like a silver feather and glowed with soft bioluminescence. When it docked, every noble on the station turned their heads. Even the staff froze in place. Her name was Lady Cerelier to the Kiroth fortune. Ruler of 4 moons, and richer than some minor empires. She had never visited the pleasure market before. She didn't believe in paying for feelings, but something had changed. Jace was in the garden chamber when he heard the announcement. Lady Cerelia requests a private companion, the voice said. Selection: Human Unit Number 27, Jace Harrow. The room turned silent. Even other humans stopped. What they were doing? She picked you, whispered Raj, another human companion. You're either lucky or doomed the next moment. 2 white drones floated toward him and said, "Follow us, please." No choice, no time, no explanation. He was led to her private yacht, Silent Palace, drifting just beyond the main ring of the station. Inside, everything was quiet, clean, and full of soft colors. No guards, no robots, just peace and her. Lady Cerelia stood by the glass wall, staring into the starfield. She had long violet hair that moved like water, and her skin shimmered. Like polished pearl, she turned only slightly when he entered. "You're smaller than I expected," she said gently. "I didn't expect to be here at all," Jace replied. She smiled at that, the first real smile he had seen on an alien face. "Since he arrived, sit," she said. "No roles, no performance. Just talk to me like I'm someone." They sat in silence for a long time. She offered him fruit that glowed softly, like tiny lanterns. He ate because it was better than speaking the wrong words. Then she asked the question that broke the quiet. "Do you know what loneliness is like when you have everything?" Jace didn't answer immediately. He thought of his apartment back on Earth, small, loud, full of traffic sounds and laughter from neighbors he never spoke to. "Yes," he said. "It's louder when you're surrounded by silence." Her eyes shimmered. "I thought you'd say something poetic," she whispered. "Instead, you gave me truth." Cerelia did not touch him that night. Instead, she asked him to tell a story. Not about war or science or politics. She wanted something ordinary. So he told her about the time he missed his bus and had to run in the rain, how he slipped, fell into mud, and a stranger helped him up. The story was simple, clumsy, and warm. She listened like it was the most beautiful thing in the galaxy. The next day, she took him to her planete moon, covered in golden meadows and silent lakes. They sat on soft grass, and she removed her crown. "Every time I meet someone, they already want something from me," she said. "Status, power, favor, but you looked terrified." Jace gave a crooked smile. "Because I didn't know I was about to be borrowed by a space queen." She laughed, treely laughed. The sound echoed across the fields like wind chimes in a dream. She showed him her memory's alien crystals that played feelings instead of images. He felt her childhood, her coronation, betrayal by friends who loved her title more than her. And then he felt it. The crushing silence she had lived with for 200 years. That night, she asked softly, "Would you stay longer then?" 8 nights. Jace paused. His heart said yes. But his brain screamed that he was just a piece of property with a time limit. "I can't," he whispered. "They own my contract." Cerelia stood, her face unreadable. "Then I'll buy it," she said. Without emotion, "Name your price." "It's not about money," Jace said quietly. "It's about choice." She nodded. "Then I won't buy you," she whispered. "But I will give you the one thing you haven't had since arriving." She opened her palm and crushed a golden tag between her fingers. It was his tracking chip's control crystal. "You're free here," she said. "You can walk away, and—" For the first time since arriving at the Forbidden Market, Jace didn't feel like a product. He felt like a person again. But freedom has a price, and sometimes the richest woman in the galaxy is also the loneliest. The question now was no longer about ownership. It was about something far more dangerous: attachment. Jace looked at the stars and realized he had just become the galaxy's most wanted heart. The escape attempt, the soft wind on Cerelia's moon carried the scent of crystal blossoms. Jace stood at the edge of a quiet lake, its water so still it looked like melted glass. Birds with glowing wings drifted overhead, and yet, despite the beauty, he felt like a man in a gilded cage. He had freedom here, or so she said. No guards, no locked doors, no electric cuffs. But he still couldn't leave, not because of chains, but because of her eyes when she smiled. Because of the way she listened, like he was the only sound in her world, that frightened him more than any collar. He wandered the estate gardens for hours that day, until he found something unexpected: a human face, hidden in the shadows of a courtyard. It was Raj, the quiet man he'd met once in the Harmony Lounge, except now he looked older, thinner, and sharper. "You're still here?" Jace asked, stunned. Raj nodded slowly. 7 years, 2 mistresses, and 1 broken promise later. He looked at the alien guards on the roof, then whispered, "They say we're free, but they watch every move." Jace sat beside him, heart pounding. "I thought she freed me." "She freed your legs, not your heart," Raj said. "You're not stupid. You feel it." Jace looked down. Silent, Raj leaned in. "If you want out, I have a way." That night, Jace returned to Cerelia's chambers and smiled like nothing was wrong. He let her talk about stars and history while pretending to sip her starlight wine. But inside, he was counting down minutes. Raj said the escape window was only 20. Maybe 30 seconds, just long enough to slip past the drone patrols and signal a passing freighter. The plan was madness, but madness felt better than drowning in gentle captivity. At exactly midnight, Jace made his move. He left the communicator she gave him on the bed, open and blinking. He slid through the hallway tunnels Raj described, ducking under scanners and stepping over light-sensitive tiles. His hands shook. But he didn't stop. He reached the hangar door, tapped the emergency override, and waited. The metal slowly parted, revealing the vastness of open space. Raj was already inside the escape pod, fingers flying across controls. "Get in," he said. "Now?" Jace hesitated. Just once, a single image flashed in his mind: Cerelia smiling at him beneath the twin moons. Her voice soft when she asked, "Will you stay one more day?" He shook it off, stepped in, and sealed the pod. But before the launch system could engage, the pod froze. An alarm flashed, and the voice of the estate AI spoke coldly. "Unauthorized departure detected." Lights burst on all sides, drones descended. And Raj cursed under his breath. "She locked the system," he said. "It's over." The door opened, and Cerelia stood there alone. No guards, no weapons. Her face was unreadable. She walked toward them slowly, the silence heavier than any siren. Jace stepped out, head lowered. "I wasn't trying to hurt you," he said. "I know," she whispered. Raj stayed in the pod. Silent, defeated, Cerelia looked at Jace, and for the first time, her voice cracked. "Do you think I don't know what this place is?" she said. "Do you think I don't know? I'm just another golden cage." She walked to the wall and placed her hand on a small panel. The pod doors hissed open again, this time showing a glowing map of nearby ships. "I won't stop you again," she said. "But you have to know something." Jace looked at her, eyes burning. "I never wanted to own you," she whispered. "I just didn't want to be alone anymore." Raj was already pressing the ignition. Jace looked once more at her face, an alien queen who had everything and yet begged for nothing. Then he stepped into the pod, and they launched, as the estate shrank. Behind them, Jace didn't feel free. He felt hollow. The stars stretched out before them, endless and cold. But behind them, on that moon of silence, someone had let him go even when she didn't have to. Raj broke the silence after a long while. "You did the right thing," he said. Jace didn't reply. Because in his heart, he wasn't sure if he had escaped or abandoned something real. And far behind, under the soft glow of twin moons, Cerelia stood alone in her garden, watching the sky and hoping the stars would bring him back someday. The council's warning: the grand chamber of the Female Nobility Council had no doors, only walls of living stone that shifted open for blood recognition alone. Only the highest among the high could enter, and that day, Cerelia walked in without a crown, without guards, and without shame. 12 alien women sat in a circle, each representing a different noble bloodline. Their faces were emotionless masks decorated in jewels, bone patterns, and data-light tattoos. They did not stand when she entered. She was already judged. High Matron Islara of the Coldspire world spoke first. "Your record is clear," she said. "You violated the emotional contract clause of Class 7. You let a human escape without permission," another added. "Worse, you formed what appears to be a bond." Cerelia stood in the center, her voice calm but cold. "Yes," she said. "I let him go, and would you take him back?" asked Matron Islara, her many eyes narrowing. Cerelia didn't blink. "If he chose to return," she said, "I would welcome him." The council whispered among themselves, voices sharp as blades. One matron slammed her hand on the table. "Humans were meant to serve emotional correction, not cause it." Another leaned forward, her skin like shifting smoke. "They're unpredictable, impulsive, and dangerously honest. Their presence," she added, "is starting to fracture ancient customs." Cerelia finally raised her voice. "Then perhaps your customs deserve to fracture." The room fell silent. It was a dangerous sentence, but one she meant. "They come from a world filled with chaos, death, and short lives," Cerelia said. "But their emotions are clearer than ours. They mourn, they laugh, they forgive him. They do it without needing a reason." A younger noble sitting in the back whispered, "I cried for the first time in 400 years after speaking to one." Another nodded slowly. "Mine held my hand when I was shaking and didn't ask why." The council wavered, but Islara snapped. "You have broken trust, Cerelia," she said. "Your punishment must reflect the danger of your affection. You will be stripped of trade rights, travel access, and political voice. You will be exiled to your moon, and your name will be erased from the bond registry." Cerelia didn't flinch. "I accept," she said. "But know this," she added, turning slowly. "You can exile me, but you can't erase what the galaxy now knows." She walked toward the exit, and the walls shifted open as if feeling her resolve. Behind her, the council erupted into arguments. Not about her punishment, but about what came next. Too many alien women had tasted something real, and they weren't willing to return to cold protocol. News of the council session leaked within hours. It spread across luxury starships, noble gardens, and secret markets like wildfire. "The lady who loved a human," they called her, and soon others followed, one by one, high-ranking. Women broke their contracts. Not out of rebellion, but out of longing. They began to demand new terms. Some rejected prearranged partners from their own species. Others refused to silence their feelings, and quietly, the pleasure market started to crumble. Meanwhile, Jace and Raj reached a small colony on the edge of neutral space. They blended in, but Jace didn't feel safe. He felt watched. Everywhere he went, alien women looked at him not with hunger, but with curiosity. A few even approached. "Are you from the Silk Station?" One asked, "Did you really make a noble cry?" He didn't answer, because even if he had escaped, his name hadn't. Late one night, he found Raj staring at a flickering holoscreen. "You made her famous," Raj said. "And yourself, too." Jace sat down beside him. "I didn't mean to." "Doesn't matter," Raj replied. "They're rewriting the rules because of what you two felt." Jace didn't know whether to feel proud or responsible, because when love spreads across stars, it also leaves trails behind, and somewhere on a quiet moon stripped of honor and title, Cerelia still waited, not because she expected him to return, but because she believed in the feeling that made her break every law, not desire, not duty, something far simpler. Hope, the auction rebellion. The auction hall was packed tighter than ever before. Dozens of alien women sat in silence under banners. Stitched with starlight, they waited. Eager eyes locked onto the floating display above the stage, and on that display, spinning slowly for all to see, was a single name, Jace Harrow. He wasn't there, but his profile was age, emotional output, score, interaction rating, even facial expressions from past sessions, all for sale. The announcer spoke, voice smooth like glass, opening bid 12 million threx. From House Narula, the crowd gasped. Another voice shouted, 15. Then, 20. A fever had taken hold of the room. They weren't just bidding on a man, they were bidding on a feeling, on something the galaxy had forgotten how to create. Back on the neutral colony, Jace watched it all from a broken cafe screen. His face wasn't his anymore. It was a brand, a symbol, a product. And all around him, people whispered, "That's him." He couldn't breathe. He left the cafe and walked into the cold wind, trying to vanish into the dust. He didn't know that halfway across the galaxy, someone else was watching too. Cerelia stood inside a small crystal hut on her exile moon, surrounded by golden fields and silence. She didn't cry. She activated the emergency beacon locked in her palm, the one they thought she had destroyed when they exiled her, and whispered, "No more." That night, the screen at the auction flickered, right as the bid reached 31 million. Everything shut down. The lights dimmed. The floating platform dropped with a crash. Gasps echoed through the hall. A hologram filled the air, flickering. Unstable but clear enough to show her face. "Lady Cerelia, I will speak now," she said, her voice sharper than glass. "You call this commerce, but it is rot. You sell human hearts like perfume, bottle their sorrow and call it art." The crowd shifted, some offended, others awestruck. "They are not yours to own," Cerelia said. "They were never yours." The auction master tried to cut the feed. His hands moved fast. But the system was locked. Every screen in the hall, across every lounge and market branch, now showed the same thing. Cerelia standing proud, stripped of title, but glowing. "With purpose, I broke your rules because I fell in love," she said. "And now you're breaking them too, because you crave what you don't deserve. Not warmth, not honesty, just control over it." One noble woman stood, her eyes wet. "She's right," she whispered. Another followed, then another. The crowd turned from hunger to shame, and from shame to fire. The pleasure market collapsed in one night. Contracts were erased, humans were released, and nobles fled before they could be publicly named. Protests broke out on luxury planets, demanding emotional equality and the end of human trade. And deep within that chaos, a message appeared in the galaxy's encrypted newsnet. Just one line, signed by an unknown sender. Hearts are not for sale. Jace sat on a rooftop, staring. Up at the sky, the stars seemed closer now. Raj found him there, carrying 2 warm mugs and a silent grin. "You saw it?" Jace asked. Raj nodded. "You broke the galaxy." Jace looked down at his hands. Still rough from the escape pod's controls. "I just wanted to leave," he whispered. "I didn't mean for any of this." Raj sipped his drink and chuckled. "Doesn't matter what you meant," he said. "You changed things later that night. A small, old transport ship arrived at the colony's dock. Its panels were scratched. Its engines wheezed. But its passenger stood tall. Cerelia stepped out into the dust. No guards, no robes, just herself. She looked around the colony and whispered, 'I'm not here to claim him. I'm here to see if he still wants me.' Jace saw her before she saw him. He stood still, heart pounding like it hadn't in years. And as she looked up and met his eyes, neither of them spoke, because sometimes silence was louder than any vow. The galaxy had tried to auction love, bottle emotion, and price every tear but 2 people. One human and one alien had burned the system down with something no one could replicate: choice. And in that moment, on a forgotten colony lit by stars and rebellion, a new kind of market was born, one where nothing was for sale, only given. The experience worth more than gold, the galaxy moved on, as it always did. Trade routes reopened, new empires rose, old ones fell. And the stars kept burning overhead like distant, uncaring gods, but deep in one quiet corner of space far from the power rings and auction halls there was a small moon with no name. On that moon lived a man and a woman who had once brought the system to its knees. And neither of them wore crowns anymore. Jace had built a greenhouse with his bare hands. It didn't look like much bent metal, patched glass. A roof made from ship debris, but inside it grew real things: tomatoes, mint, earth-rooted plants, and a single tree from Cerelia's homeworld that glowed when touched. Every morning they watered it together, and every evening they sat under it and said nothing at all. They didn't speak of the past, not often. He didn't ask if she missed her palace, and she didn't ask if he missed Earth. Some questions were better left unanswered, not because they hurt, but because silence was where love grew best. Visitors started coming, not officials, not nobles, but others like them. Alien women and human men who had walked away from the broken market. They came carrying broken hearts, questions, hope, or sometimes just the need to see someone who once dared to say no. One visitor was a young noblewoman named Keltra, barely 70 years old by her people's measure. She sat by their fire one night and asked softly, "How did you know it was more than a transaction?" Jace looked at Cerelia and she gave a small smile. "Because he never tried to sell himself," she said, "even when he had nothing. And she never asked for more than what I freely gave," Jace added. Keltra nodded, eyes wide with wonder. "I was taught to measure affection and value," she whispered. "But you made it worthless." "No," Jace replied. "We made it priceless, over time." Others started building near the greenhouse, small homes, shared kitchens, and a learning hall where emotions were taught the way languages used to be. They didn't call it a colony or a refuge. They called it the choice, because no one was bound, and no one could buy what was offered. Galactic historians would later say this movement was never organized. It had no leaders, no government, no clear manifesto. It only had stories passed from voice to voice, ship to ship, heart to heart, about a human who looked into the eyes of power and said, "I am not for sale," and an alien queen who answered, "Then I will give you everything without price." One day, years later, a child ran through the greenhouse, barefoot and giggling. She had soft copper skin and human eyes with flecks of gold. Ouch. She stopped in front of the glowing tree and touched it, and it lit up like the stars above. Jace lifted her into his arms and smiled. "She always knows where to find us," he said. Sorelia brushed a leaf from the child's hair, her voice quiet. "She's not ours," she said, "but she belongs." Here, the girl was one of many orphans brought by traders and wanderers. And like all the others, she had a home now, not because someone paid for it, but because someone chose to give it, later that night. Under the warm hum of firelight, Sorelia leaned on Jace's shoulder. "You once told me, Earth calls it love," she said softly. "Do you still believe that's what this is?" Jace looked up at the stars, old and brilliant and endless. He thought of every contract he had been forced to sign. Every auction, every false smile. He thought of the moon beneath his feet, the garden, the child, and the warmth beside him now. "No," he whispered. "This is more, and so." The man who had once been auctioned like jewelry, and the woman who had once ruled planets, became something the galaxy could never classify, measure, or control. They became the proof that not everything rare must be owned, and that the best experience in the galaxy wasn't bought in gold, it was given in trust, held in arms, and grown in freedom. Where once there was a pleasure market, now stood a living truth. That real love is never a transaction. It is a rebellion wrapped in kindness and a choice made again every single day.